Thank you very much, friends. And as we know, Israel-Palestine issue has taken a very bad turn after 7th October, when Hamas launched a air, land, and water attack on Israel. Nearly 1,300 people were killed. Now, taking that pretext, Israel launched an all-out attack at refugee camps, at hospitals, and at different places, which I think today only the news of ceasefire has come, and 4 days have been given for ceasefire and further negotiations. Now, during this period, nearly 1,300 Palestinians have been killed, and majority of the people who have been killed are children. This issue, as in United Nations, currently what happened first, we will see that in United Nations, there was a resolution for ceasefire 2 or 3 weeks ago, and that resolution was opposed by Israel, America, Britain, and other Western countries. India, surprisingly and shamefully, abstained from that ceasefire resolution. Uh, that was one, and despite that, the resolution was passed, but Israel refused to accept the call for ceasefire given by United Nations. Now, during this period, there are indescribable sufferings for the people of Gaza Strip mainly. They have been trapped, and the relief material, India did send relief material, but that was a mere token. Nothing substantial relief has been given to Palestinians who are under attack from Israel on more than nearly 7 weeks. Now, the background of this whole thing is that there are 2 or 3 words we should understand. First is a Jew, the people, Jewish religion, and third is Zionism. Now, Jew religion is a ancient religion. It came into existence 7th century before Jesus Christ, like BCE, what is called lately. And this is the first Abrahamic religion. After this, the second Abrahamic religion came in the form of Christianity. Third one came in the form of Islam. So these are the 3 Abrahamic religions which originated in the West Asia. Now, Jews which were scattered in different parts of Europe, they later on, after 12th century in particular, they came under a part of thing which is called anti-Semitism. Now, what is anti-Semitism? Anti-Semitism is a racial attack, racial hatred, racial sort of a treatment of Jews scattered in different parts of the Europe in particular. So, anti-Semitism came as a phenomenon mainly because of 2 reasons. One is that there are strong sentiments against Jews amongst the Christians, particularly among the Christians. Why? Because Christians generally regard that it is because of Jews that Son of God, Jesus Christ, was put on the cross and he was killed. So this anti-Semitic feeling has 2 or 3 components. First and the major one is the relationship to cross on which Jesus was hanged. Second is, and on this context, I must quote Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi did say that Jews are being treated the way Dalits are treated by Hinduism in India. Jews are treated by Christianity the way Dalits are treated in Hinduism in India. So basically, Jews were the victims of biases, prejudices from the large section of society. Second thing is that many Jews who were displaced and scattered took to money lending business. As we know, that famous character in Shakespeare's novel, Merchant of Venice, the type of Shylock. So they were doing this usury trade, and because of which lot of craftsmen, lot of craftsmen and farmers, they had to suffer. As such, the total economic system was such that what Jews were exploiting these uh, farmers and craftsmen, in turn, their money was being siphoned off by the industrialists and the capitalists who came up later or who came up bigger. But in sum and substance, this created a sort of a sentiment against the Jew. Now, this sentiment, as I just to repeat, this is called anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism, which is very prevalent. So, this sort of a bias against Jews led to their persecution in many European countries, because of which they were driven off. They were driven off to various places, and they took shelter in neighboring countries or other places. Now, this phenomenon goes on until 18th century, and in 1897, when a section of Jews comes up who are believing in Zionism. Now, what is Zionism? Zion is a mountain in Jerusalem. So, Zionism is a ideology which is again racial, and this racial ideology is directed against Palestinians. I'll come to explain why against Palestinians in particular. And Palestinians are not only Muslims. 85% to 80% of Palestinians are Muslims, 10% are Christians, and nearly 4% of Jews. They are the native of Palestine. Now, this Zionism, so first word I said is anti-Semitism, second word is Zionism. So Zionism is directed against the natives of Palestine. To see the roots of this, in 1897, one author, he wrote a book called Jewish Nation. And in this, he outlined the Jewish Zionist concept. And according to him, uh, Jews are a nation, but they do not have a land. His name was Theodor Herzl. Theodor Herzl. He wrote also a book, The Jewish State, The Jewish State. And with this, 1897, they formed a Jewish Jewish fund, Jewish fund in which the rich Jews contributed, and they called. Now, here's a very crucial point. They called that Palestine is our land. Now, this was a very racial way of thinking, because Palestine was inhabited at that time by Muslims, Christians, and some Jews also. So they thought these natives have no strength. So they said, our holy book says that Palestine is our land and we are the chosen people. Please remember, chosen people type of ideology is a part of, for example, fascism, fascism, Zionism, and any other politics in the Middle East. So these Zionists amongst the Jews, they called for a Jewish fund, with the help of which they started inviting Jews from different parts of the world to come and settle in Palestine. Now, here they gave a slogan that a Jewish nation does not have a land and Palestine does not have a nation. Jewish nation does not have a land and Palestine does not have a nation. So it was a very aggressive, oppressive formulation whereby they totally ignored, they totally bypassed the right of native people to inhabit their own land. And here they searched for some holy books and Old Testament, and based on that, they tried to construct their whole ideology of a Jewish state. So, going by this, many Jews started settling in Palestine. At that time, as I said, the population of Jews initially was 4%. Gradually, it went on increasing. The Jews who were coming to Palestine, a condition was laid on them. What was the condition? Number one, that you buy the land. Once you buy the land, you can't sell it back to the Arabs, the Palestinians. Number one. Number two, you cannot give it on hire to a Palestinian. Basically, what is happening, that they go on appropriating more land, all that. So as their land increases, they become substantial in number. By 1947, they became close to 30%. But even before that, now so far, Palestine was part of Ottoman Empire. The First World War, through First World War, the Palestine came under British mandate. Mandate is not a ownership. Mandate is sort of a dictating terms. It was not ownership. So British were the people who had mandate of Palestine, and they decided that Palestine has two nations, the the Jews and the Muslims, the Arabs, Jews and the Arabs. And here, even before that, in 1916, they came out with a very racist formulation called Balfour Declaration. Balfour Declaration was a formal recognition by British of a Jewish state. Balfour Declaration was said that Palestine has Jews and Palestine has uh, Palestinians, the Arabs, and all that. So please note here that a land which belonged exclusively to Palestinians, the Muslims and Arabs, now that stood gradually transferred to Jews, and it was aggressively protected by British. British. British had their own designs. They themselves did not regard natives as having any particular right over their own land. They also believed in racism, in colonialism. So British in 1947, they got they got Israel recognized by United Nations. The United Nations recognized Israel as a state, and at the very foundation, many injustices were done to the Palestine state. Number one, when when the Jewish state was declared, the Jews were 45%. Jews were 45% of the population, and they owned 7% of the land. They owned 7% of the land. With this resolution, which British pushed through United Nations, they came to control 55% of the Palestinian land. Stage one. So Arabs, the Palestinians, majority Muslims, they got very dissatisfied and they were not comfortable with this solution. Anyway, Israel comes into being, totally supported by Britain, America, and the other Western powers. This America, Britain, and other Western powers had a vested interest that this is an area which is rich in oil, and Arabs, the other Arabs, neighboring countries, Jordan, Egypt, Syria, they are controlling this oil. So we should have our say in this land, where we can have a ally who can control, who can be our proxy, in the area. So that was intention of British and America in promoting Israel. Now, after its formation in 1947, it got 47% of 55% of land, 30% of population, 55% of land. Arabs were displaced because of that. Palestinians were displaced out because of that. And as I just repeat, major of the Palestinians were Muslims. Now let's see the second point. After this, they occupied 55% of the land. There were two other wars between Arabs, Palestine on one side, and Israel on the other. In both these major wars, Israel was totally and blindly supported by America and Britain. So through these wars, Israel expanded its area of occupation, and it became first 80%, and that it went on to become over 80%, close to 90%. So Gaza Strip and Western Bank, they remained with uh, Palestinians, and the remaining one, Israel gradually came to occupy in that area. Now, in the first war which occurred, first or second war, 1967, before that there was another war which Israel launched. In that, nearly over 8 lakh Palestinians, which was a substantial section of their population, were driven away from their homes, and they had to go and live as refugees in different parts of Palestine and different neighboring countries. Now, this was the first time when 8 lakh Palestinians were placed from their lands. They became totally helpless, and from amongst these, the resistance started. And the resistance of weak generally takes the form of violence. So please note about Leila Khalid. Leila Khalid emerged from these displaced people. She's an iconic figure in Palestinian resistance, and she and her group, they went and killed some Israeli athletes in the Olympics. Now, so this is the type of frustration which they saw. Then comes Yasser Arafat, Oslo deal, in which they try to negotiate for substantial section of land for them, rehabilitation of the refugees who have been displaced because of the Israel. But this also is not implemented. Israel backs out from that. And Israel's one prime minister, you will remember, the first woman prime minister anywhere probably, Golda Meir. Golda Meir. She said, "Who are Palestinians? There is no Palestinians. There is no Palestine. This is our Israel. We are the chosen people, the Star of David and all that." So they basically tried to keep pushing the Muslims, Palestinians, Arabs into margins and margins. Now, so first Leila Khalid failed, then Yasser Arafat, Oslo Accord, it did not work, and after that Oslo Accord. In between, I must point out one thing. So Jews are the occupiers. Jews are not colonized people. They have colonized Palestine. Jews are the occupiers. And in 1975, somehow with courage, United Nations passed a resolution that Israel is an occupier and it should leave its areas which belong to Palestine. But Israel is one country which totally ignored all the US resolutions. As I was pointing out, this ceasefire, which has taken ceasefire resolution, which was passed by United Nations, that also they refused to accept in 1975. So first, United Nations passed a resolution that Israel is an occupier. It should leave the areas which belong to Palestine. Israel refused to do that. So the current situation is that Gaza has been was encircled by Israel. They describe it as a sort of an open jail where 2.5 lakh Palestinians live. And other side, there is a West Bank. So out of this total helplessness, Hamas emerged. Some people also say that Hamas was also initially funded by Israel because for countries like Israel, it is easy to target those who indulge in violence. So anyway, but Hamas also succeeded in in a way to win over the elections. It came to majority, but it was not allowed to form the government. Hamas, I totally denounce the methods of Hamas of armed attacks and all that. But United Nations General Secretary Antonio Guterres, he gave a statement saying that Hamas has not come from a vacuum. Meaning what? That the violations of United Nations resolutions done by Israel and Israel's refusal to recognize the due rights of Palestinians, the major cause of coming up of such a armed response from the Palestinian people in the form of Hamas. So Israel is the occupying power, and Palestine are the victims, the natives whose land and earth has been taken away from them by by the Israelis, and Israelis, the Zionists. Now, second point I must say, all Jews are not Zionists. All Jews are not Zionists. Even when I said initially that some people called for a Jewish state, it was a small section of affluent rich Jews who supported it. Large number of Jews opposed the very idea of settling in Palestine, forming a new state. And you will be also knowing that currently a lot of protests are going on, peace marches are going on against Israel's action in Gaza, Israel's attack on Palestinians. And in these protests and actions, many Jews are also taking part. So let's not confuse between Jews and Zionism. Jews, Zionists are a small part of Jews who are very affluent, who on the strength of their money, power, and support from the Western countries want to establish a state and want to totally get rid of Muslim Arab Palestinians from that area. So we are in a very delicate situation in history because the US and Western powers, that whole attitude of supporting the occupier power who has colonized Palestine is the root cause, of the problem. The solution is this, that Israel has to vacate and come back to its uh, allotted land, which was done by United Nations in 1947. That is 55% of the land. Even though it is more, I think Palestinians will be happy to that they make a demarcation there and leave the other occupations of the land which they have done. So this is called two nation solution, that Palestine should be occupying the area allotted in 1947. Israel should be occupying the area allotted in 1947, that is 55% of the land. So this is one. Even at that time, there were many people who felt that Israel is being given undue favors, and they did not stand with its policy, because Israel's rule is more or less a sort of a apartheid rule. Now, as far as India is concerned, in India, right from father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, Indian foreign policy and India's attitude towards Israel and Palestine was very well defined. Mahatma Gandhi, right in 1938, when there was simmering that Israel should be formed, Mahatma Gandhi said that Palestine belongs to Arabs as much as Britain belongs to English and France belongs to French. There is a clip circulating in the media of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, of all the people Atal Bihari Vajpayee. In that clip, Atal Bihari Vajpayee says that the whole land belongs to Palestinians and Israel must vacate it. So that may be a far-fetched thing. So far, India's policy was also always with Palestine, the rights of Palestine, and India was supporting Palestinians because a lot of injustices have been done against them. Another point I want to make out, that Jews were tortured, massacred, subjected to gas chamber by Hitler. Hitler was shaped by anti-Semitism, which were prevalent in Europe, and it was because of that he attributed all the ills of Germany to Jews. 60 lakhs of Jews were subjected to gas chamber, and other 60 lakhs were killed by other means. But what Hitler did to Jews is no reason for Jews are Zionists doing similar thing to Palestinians. What Zionists are doing to Palestinians is very much similar to what Hitler did to Jews. So some people give it as a justification that Jews suffered a lot, so they deserve to have a particular country. But that's a wrong argument. Jews were settled in different parts of the country. They should very well have the citizenship of that country. That is their right. But to come and occupy another land is totally different thing. Not acceptable by human standards, United Nations standards, not anyway. But Israel is very adamant. Israel refuses to follow any of the United Nations resolutions, and mainly this is because America, Britain, France, these major Western powers, the imperialist powers, they stand to support uh, Israel, and that's again mainly sort of a global balance, global domination by the Western powers, which they want to achieve through Israel. So this is in a nutshell. I will just summarize that Jews were persecuted in different parts of the world. Not all Jews wanted to form Israel. There's a small section called Zionists who wanted to form, who wanted to come and occupy Palestine. And after having come and occupied Palestine, they gave it a religious color that it is because of the uh, dictates in the Holy Book that they are occupying this land, and this land belongs to them. It is a totally illogical thing. Uh, this is like natives' rights being abolished in favor of the occupiers who are more affluent or who are supported by the imperial power. So today, what is the solution? I see that one is that United Nations today is not very strong because United Nations is not very strong. It is not able to impose. It is not able to implement its policies that are just, fair, and lawful and humane. Because of that, Israel is getting away with all what it does. We can always say that Jews do not have any nation, while Muslims have so many nations. That's a wrong logic. Logic is this, that Muslims have been staying there for centuries, millennia. How can anybody tell them that you go and stay to other places? And how can Jews who are settled in other countries come and occupy a country and call that country as our own at the total cost of the inhabitants, local inhabitants? So this, the solution of, probably the compromising solution is that two nations, Israel should remain restricted to its boundary, and Palestine should have right to live with full freedom and with full liberty. The international powers, which are blindly supporting Israel, are doing a grave injustice. And in India, the other aspect is that since the victims of Israel are mainly Muslims, and in India there is Islamophobia, hatred for Muslims. So in a subtle way, the social media and the right-wing political party, there is one political party which thinks on this line, hate Muslims. They internally are circulating hate messages. I was surprised to know that recently a study came out that in the whole world, the maximum anti-Palestinian posts, they are emerging from India. This is again related to the growing Islamophobia in India, which has come up, which has become stronger in 9/11, and which is part of the target of the majoritarian politics, which is dominating here over a period of time. So these are two things which are circulating, that Jews do not have a nation. So why not let them have one nation? Which again is a totally illogical thing. Second is the Islamophobia in India has been intensified because of what Israel has done, and that has been circulated by social media. Probably that's what I have to say. I'll be happy to answer your